Good morning. Good morning. It's 2:45 a.m. on my way to my destination spot. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is going to, I think, people who have tried to lose weight, build their business, what else? Run a marathon, keep their family together. I think they'll relate to what I'm going to say. I remember sitting in when I first got into real estate. I heard this. This lady. She's a local realtor. She's still a local realtor, and I had always driven by her building, but I wasn't quite sure what it was. And one day, I happened to see this like 30-minute podcast, this audio cast, and she was talking about a program she was involved with, and she contributed it to her success. And I signed up for this program. Literally within a day, I signed up for the program. I was like, she's doing good, I want to do good, so this is the program for me. And I signed up for the program, and I'm not going to say what it is because I don't endorse it, and different strokes for different folks. But I'll tell you this, it taught me a lot of discipline. But I remember sitting at one of the very first conferences, or one of the very first events that they actually had, and I was a part of, and I remember sitting in about the first or the second row. I always end up sitting in the first row wherever I go. And this top producing realtor that's out of Colorado gets on stage, and she literally, I think she had grossed over the span of 15 years $190 million in gross commissions. Like, they ran the numbers, they knew what she was doing. $190 million in gross commissions. And I remember the lady standing up, and it really, like, in real estate, there are certain things that are like superstar to you, and you look at that and you think that that's superstar. And I remember her saying, I used to be just like you. I used to sit in that exact same seat as you 15 years ago. I was in that seat, looking up at the stage, trying to figure out how they did it. I was just like you. And I know she was just like me because at that same event, or maybe even at a different event later on, I got a chance to sit down and have breakfast with her. And she had what I had. She had a notebook. And everybody that was sitting at the table were exchanging ideas about what books they were reading, what things they were doing, how they were implementing certain things. And she was answering questions at breakfast time. I say all that to say, you don't ever have to be stuck in a position in life that you do not want to be in. Because there was always a success story that can come in front of you and say, I was just like you. See, I used to sit there and I used to go through the MLS, which is the multiple listing system. It's what realtors use. And I used to see different realtors with 15 or 20 homes for sale at one time. And I thought that was absolutely amazing, because at the time, I couldn't get one. Unless I was really lucky I couldn't get one. And now I look back and I say, wow, I'm developing my business into the way that I've always wanted it to be. And it gets me to thinking, was it always really just inside of me? And I just didn't notice. Did I always have the ability, but I just did not believe? Has it always been possible, but I just thought it was impossible? So when I reflect back and she says, I was just like you, I was sitting in that seat just like you, 190 million gross commission dollars later, I was just like you. See, life is a series of events intended to be sort of like breadcrumbs in the story of Hansel and Gretel. It's intended to help you get back to where you need to be, where you've always been, what's always been inside of you. Reflection, situations, circumstances, all are intended to bring you back to a point where you understand that it was always inside of you. I haven't changed. I learned how to work with my finances by putting things away. I haven't changed. I've learned that I can't eat a cupcake every single day and hope that I lose weight. I haven't changed. I've just become more disciplined. I remember riding down the street 2 years ago, and I'm on a 5-year minimum journey right now. So I understand that there's still some pretty cool work ahead of me. But I remember driving, it was dark just like this. My windows are tinted, but I'll drop the window. It's dark outside. This ain't a game. And I would be crying. I would be listening to Joel Osteen, or I'd be listening to T.D. Jakes, or I'd be listening to something spiritual, and I just start crying. I wasn't crying because I was upset. I was crying because I didn't know if I was making the right moves. I was crying because I wasn't sure as the head of my household if I was doing the right thing. But something inside of me just said, keep going. When it's hard, it's worth it. When it's hard, it works. When it's difficult, you're building something. Keep going. So now I reflect back and I look at my business right now, and I'm like, wow, like literally, I'm gonna close maybe 8 transactions this month. And I know that that's just a starting point. I know that that's just a starting point. That's not the end all be all, because you can set your goals to be whatever it is that you want them to be if you're willing to put in the work, if you're willing to do what's necessary, if you're willing to be disciplined, if you're willing to listen to somebody, if you're willing to. And the listen to somebody part is sometimes the hardest part for people, is because you got so much damn pride. You think you know everything, but you don't know shit. When I get around a top producer who's done $190 million in gross commission income over the span of 15 years, and they say, I was just like you, I was strong, I didn't know, I was stuck. How can you refute that information? How can you dispute that? It's been confirmed. When you hear stories, and I'm not just talking about realtors, but it happens to be my business, but I believe it's applicable to all areas of life, because real estate is simply just a business that's attached to a person's vision. The same weight loss is simply an outcome attached to a person's vision of how they see themselves. How can people in my business say, I set a goal of doing $1 million gross commission income every single month? It's simple. They were disciplined and willing to get up and do exactly what was needed to get the first deal and replicate or duplicate that process as many times in a given day, in a given month, in order to achieve the desired income. But there's two things in this world that will hold you back faster than anything else. One is your pride, and the other one is your inability to take the advice of somebody who's already been there and who has already done what it is that you're trying to do. Those were two things that will stop you in your tracks. Because if there's one thing I know God said for sure, he does not like a prideful person. The prideful person is somebody who will not take advice. Someone who will not adhere, someone who believes that they know more, therefore they don't need to hear what you have to say. Your prideful way will keep you stuck. Your prideful way will put you in a position and keep you there where you will not win. You will not prosper. And I wake up every morning and I'm so happy. I'm so happy that 2 years ago I got in the car. That 2 years ago, no matter how many times my mind was playing with me, telling me that I should stop, that I should give up, that this doesn't make sense. Why am I driving around this early in the morning? The gym doesn't open up for a couple hours. Why? And I kept saying, if you don't want to do it anyways. Because it's the things that you don't want to do that builds the best character in you. So this applies to every facet of life. Every facet of life. But you got to stop cheating yourself thinking that you got some shortcut. 5 years on this journey minimum. The rest of my life maximum. But what do I leave behind? I leave my kids with a different way of thinking. If I leave them with a different way of thinking, guess what they leave to their kids? They leave to their kids a different way of thinking. If I leave wealth building techniques that they've seen, they've grown up, because we already know it's not always what you know, it's who you know. And when you lead by example, what you're doing is you're setting the groundwork up for the rest of them to come right behind you and do exactly what you did. The same way your daddy left you and you left your son. The same way your mom was on welfare, so now you on welfare. The same way your parents had bad eating habits, so now you have bad eating habits. The same way communication was so dysfunctional inside your house that all it was yelling and arguing. and now all that's in your house is yelling and arguing, you switch it and you move in a different direction. You leave that behind. So I remember sitting at this seminar or at this event for this training that I had paid $20,000 for. 1 year, it's $20,000. 1 year. And I remember when I told my wife I was doing it. She's always just said, okay. 1 year. $20,000. You have a responsibility to you to be the best you can be. But your prideful ways and your inability to hear is going to hurt you. Because I do not forget anything that was said to me. And I take it all as a blessing in this great big walk of life.